Okay, so now I'm going to make the climax. So we'll need the melody. Just going to drag that over there. And then I will copy the first half of the first drop. And that pretty much kind of makes the climax. But then I can also add chords. Actually, I should have added chords to this bit as well, so I'll just do the chords for the whole track. So chords are fairly simple. You just get saws, and then more saws. But this one will be this saw table again, because I like this saw table. So to make the notes, you can literally just copy the pads. It's going to be pretty much the same thing. But then to make it sound more like a chord with the rhythm of a chord, you make this LFO, and then you set both the levels to 0 and put the LFO onto the level. This one's kind of fast because the BPM is fast, and then you can just put that there. And now I can just make multiple layers, as usual. Although for chords, you don't need to go as crazy as you do with leads, in terms of sound design and in terms of stacking. Although, it's important that you don't just use saw waves, because just stacking saws on top of saws isn't going to do anything. So make sure to put some square waves in there as well, and you can even have some fun waves. That's a bit too fun. Don't want waves that are too fun. Also, for the saw, a noise oscillator on bright white mode is a good idea. Add some high end in. Then I can combine them together on a bus. And it's pretty important to know which is your high and which is your low chord, and then EQ them to fit that. So this one's the high one. And this is the low one. Then I'm gonna OTT them. So you can hear now how different they are, but then when combined, sound like that. Just one more cut there. Now on the chords bus, I'm gonna turn off the distortion. Generally, I prefer not to distort chords at all. Turn down the compressor and the master volume. This EQ just cuts out those. I don't need to do anything more. And then delay and reverb. For the delay and reverb on the chords, you don't need to go as crazy as the leads. Like, just imagine the chord processing as the lead processing, but tamer. So, lower mix levels, but keep similar settings. After that, I'm going to compress with an OTT again. And I think that's good. Then I'll have the EQ. I'll adjust this later when I'm mixing, because for now the chords by itself sounds good, but you want to adjust the chords frequencies based on the other stuff, and I'll do that when I'm mixing. I'll just finish off using a camel crusher. And there we go. So now I'm just going to add a bit more variation in the first half, but still don't need that much variation, because all of the variation is going to come in the second half. So just a tiny bit. There we go. Then to make the build up to the climax, it's pretty much just a case of copying and pasting this bit. Also, I need to put the chords in, as well as the chords in the earlier bits. And then, as before, just make the automation similar to this one. It's going to have low pass, and then I can automate that. You can attach the automation of this EQ to this one, but I prefer not to, so that I can start the automation from whichever point I want to. And in this case, because these two frequencies are different, and also that way I can have a different shaped curve here. Then for the build-up, one thing I did forget to do last time was the snare low. So to make a snare low, all you need to do is just grab a kick that's in the key of the track. I've actually forgotten the key. E minor. So just any kick on E. This one. Color and name it. And then what I do is I just put a Diablo on it, wherever it's. So I just put a Diablo on it, then turn up the clip a little bit, and the punch quite a lot. Then I just EQ out pretty much all the highs. And that makes a snare low. It's literally just copy and paste. And then of course turn it down, because all the distortion is going to make it quite loud. You want to make it so that the snare is still louder than the snare low. But then you still want to be able to hear the snare low. So I think that's roughly good enough. Then to make the build up to the climax more interesting, you can add more crashes. So the crashes get faster, but not by that much. So you pretty much just want to put a crash every time it speeds up, but then in the last speed change of snares, you can put 2 or 4 crashes, depending on whether you think it sounds better. And then one last crash before the final beat. Or bar, or yeah, bar. And while we're here, I may as well add in some risers. So I just use risers from sample packs. I have quite a few. That's pretty much the only thing I buy on Cymatics, actually. It's just risers, because usually their samples aren't that good. But for some reason their risers are pretty good, so yeah. You don't actually have to use the BPM tags. I just ignore them and then just stretch the samples. So just grab something nice, and I think this one's good. And then the start of the sample to the end of the sample in a riser is usually exactly 8 beats, so you can just use the stretch button up here and just stretch it to 8 beats, and generally the sample will then be at the correct BPM. So make sure stretch is on, otherwise your sample is going to be super high pitched for no reason. Then just use the pitch knob to adjust it to the correct key, and this should be correct. Although one thing that is a problem sometimes is that the end of the riser doesn't happen at the end of the snares. So I'll just cut that and then adjust it to smooth so it still fades out nicely. And then, as usual, coloring. Then I'll usually get 2 more. I usually use 3 risers, 1 low, 1 high, and 1 noise. Sometimes I'll add a 4th one for the mids, but not always. And if I find a good riser that covers both high and low, then I'll just use that one in noise. But noise is pretty much essential. So here's one. This one's already on E, so I don't need to pitch shift it. And then together. So this one sounds more like a high one. And I can use this to control the lows and the mids. Now I just need to find a noise riser. Should be, there we go, quite a few. Now you can, for the noise riser, you can just use an oscillator with a filter on it. But that sounds kind of generic, so that's why I prefer to use these, because they have more variation. And then for the noise ones, you also don't have to fit it to a certain length, because noise doesn't have a rhythm. So you can really just go and stretch it however you want. Just make sure stretch is on. Otherwise, your samples are going to be shifting in pitch for no reason. Then for this one, because the volume is roughly the same for the whole riser, I'm going to use the in knob. Just make it so that it doesn't stay the same volume and has this increase instead, because that makes the riser feel like it's rising, both in volume and pitch, rather than just pitch. Then I can connect them to a bus. I can spell risers correctly. So earlier I decided that this one's going to be the mids and lows. So I'm going to cut the highs a bit. As well as boosting some of the mids. It's important to cut out the sub because that's going to be the snare lows job. I'll just loop it to make this easier. This one's kind of quiet, so I'll probably turn the other ones down to match it. And then the noise. Again, cut the sub out. The noise usually will end up being a lot in the stereo. Actually, they all are. Well, usually all of the risers end up quite a lot in the stereo, but the noise, especially. So I think this one is fine. There we go. Now for risers, it's important to not compress too much because you've got to keep this nice rise. Just a tiny bit of compression. Also, this frequency for some reason is kind of strong, so I'll just turn it down a bit. Cut out the sub again. Then some reverb. Reverb is good on risers, but don't put any delay, because you only want the sound of the riser to be playing once. OTT, quite a low depth. Again, because don't want to compress too much. There we go. Risers. To make the drop more impactful, you can also take out the chords here and just have the melody. And I'm going to copy the risers over to the first build-up as well. So I have the risers in every build-up, which includes this one as well. Then after the climax, just going to make the outro. And I'm going to put the riser in that as well. So the outro is basically the same as the intro, except you put chords in as well. So the reason why this track's kind of short is because honestly I'm not actually fully sure what I want to do with it. One thing that would be cool would be to have a sample before the main drops as well, but make sure it's a different sample to the second drop. So I'll just get a sample for the main drops.
Drop it.
This could be nice.
Drop it. Drop it.
So this will be the vocal before the main climax and the first drop. So any of the melodic drops basically. And this is done in the same way as all the other ones.
Let's go.
Okay, this is going to be nice. And then just do the processing for this one the same as all the other ones.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's
This
go.
one I feel needs
Let's
a
go.
bit more of the
Let's go.
mids.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
So I'm just going to turn that up.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Then compression
Let's
again.
go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Can use a bit of
Let's go.
tube distortion
Let's
as well.
Let's go.
Just a little
Let's
bit.
go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Don't know why, but
Let's go.
something around here is
Let's
kind
go.
of annoying, so
Let's
I'm
go.
going to reduce
Let's
that.
go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
And
Let's go.
now delay and
Let's
reverb.
go. Let's 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 go.
Now I'm going to put
Let's go.
OTT
Let's go.
as usual.
Let's go. 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 Let's
And
go.
EQ again.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
And camera
Let's go.
pressure.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's
There we go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
So I think this would work in combination with a fill. So first I'll squish it a bit to make it the right speed.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
And I'll just grab a fill from somewhere. So this one's at 100 BPM. Also I'll just squish it a bit. Now it's 110 BPM. And that's half of 220.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
There we go. The fill is super loud for some reason. I know a lot of people like to chop almond breaks and use those as fills as well, which is pretty interesting. But that's kind of breakcore-ish, and I'm not going for that kind of vibe here.
Let's go. Let's go.
I don't like these drums, are kind of weird. I prefer this one actually. Yeah, this one's better.
Let's go.
And again, put that here. Then in this half, you can also add rides, which will make it sound cool, I think, and add some variation, because you don't want to make the two drops sound exactly the same. So I'll just stick a ride in. And I'll put the first note of the melody just after, so that it ends on a nice ending. I'll just extend that. So now it ends with a nice resolution, rather than just ending on the second note and you feel kind of weird. This fill is still too loud. Maybe it's not actually. The next thing is sub drop. A sub drop is going to go in the same place where the fill goes. And you know how I cut the lows out of the fill earlier? The lows are going to be taken up by the sub drop. So just that sound that you hear before drops. I pretty much exclusively use the ones in this folder, because I really do not know where to find good ones. So I just stick to what I'm used to. Just pitch shift it, and then insert. Again, smooth, so that it fades out nicely. So I don't link the sub drop to a bus usually, because it's quite different from the rest of the elements. So I'll usually either color it blue or purple, because it is technically both an effect and a drum at the same time. But because it's so different, I just don't put them with the rest. But if I put it separately, I can control it more easily. And usually leaving it fairly unprocessed is the way to go. Just cut out any unnecessary frequencies and you're pretty much done with that. As well as turning it down a lot because they're usually really loud. Then I can put that here as well. Here as well. Here as well. And here. Just every time there's a riser, at the end of the riser you put subdrop. Fun fact, I actually used to be quite against using sampled risers and fills. I used to think you should make everything yourself, but really it doesn't matter, to be honest. Because either way it's going to have roughly the same sound at the end. The only time you should make it yourself is if you just really want to be unique. Which is obviously a good thing, and that's why you should design leads and kicks yourself. Because those are the unique parts of a track that everyone remembers. But then other stuff you don't necessarily have to. Especially for the really small things like risers, downlifters, fills, and pretty much all percussion elements except the kick. So you can hear the drop is kind of messy at the moment, which is hopefully going to be fixed later in the mix. Because I still have the break to do. After that, mixing, mastering, downlifters. Yeah, mixing, mastering, downlifters, and well, other effects.